So the main part of the allotment is taken up with the 4 rotational bays. One there, one there, one there, and one here. And we have 4 main types of things. We have potatoes, we have roots, we have brassicas, and we have what we call other, which is miscellaneous things that you would want to rotate but don't really fit into any of those 4 categories. Examples, for example, are sweet corn, onions, things like that. This is our potato bay. We're doing less potatoes than usual. We've got, as you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4 here. So we've got an early main crop, 2 main crops, and a late. This little bit we're going to devote to planting more sweet potato this year, but you plant them a lot later. Now the idea with these is that you water in the troughs, and as they grow, as soon as you see them grow, you cover them in dirt, as I've done down with our earlies, which are already beginning to show. I've left one here. So I come across to water, and what do I see? I see him, and I think, no, 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 you really need to be covered up. Okay, and I've got a whole thing that I can cover him up with there. And what he'll do is he'll push through that and grow and grow and grow, and the idea is that you build up, so you've got a ridge along here, and you build up as much as you can before letting them pop out. I don't know why you do that, but that's the way you work with potatoes. Our next, so this is the southeastern bay. The southwestern bay over here is this year being used for onions, and we've got our white onions down that side, our red onions down here. Can you see a little red onion down there? They're covered with the wire to stop the birds from getting them. They start life, in fact, as a tiny onion that we put into half a toilet roll, so to force them to try and expand, and then we plant the whole thing in the ground. Over here we've got some shallots, and in this area at least we're going to have sweet corn. I don't know what else, but there will be sweet corn and probably baby corn as well. Over here we've got the northwestern rotational bay. Nothing in here at all yet, but you can see that the soil is kept in good working order. It's hoed regularly. You know, we've put fertiliser. Well, we haven't put fertiliser, we've put poo on it, so it's ready. And this one is our roots bay, so you'll have things like swede and parsnips and all that sort of thing in here. If we go across, this is our Brassica Bay, and you can see that the legumes are already well on the way. The legumes here, you see, will be moved next year over there, and therefore they'll give more room here to the brassicas. And so far we've got broad beans. Now these are a miniature variety. They have been damaged slightly by frost. The black bits, they have also been eaten slightly by slugs, so we've had to put down blue sweeties. This is our first wigwam, and inside is mange 2, which are round the outside, and straight down we've got French beans, and those two have suffered a similar fate, so we've had to be quite careful with that. Peas and beans are a nightmare. This one is set up waiting for the shelled peas and the sugar snaps. So and that's the only one that we're leaving covered with the fleece as well, because they are so delicate, so delicate. So we haven't yet put these ones in, but the wigwam is here. All of this is ready for brassicas, and you're talking Brussels sprouts, cabbage, cauliflower. We've got cauliflower. A number of cauliflower are already in. As soon as you put them in, of course, you need to put the blue sweeties down again to stop the slugs, and you also need netting that's run across these sort of ribbed areas. It's a cloche, and the idea is that that keeps away the birds and everything like the nasty cabbage white, which likes to plant its seeds, and when its babies hatch as caterpillars they eat the whole thing. So we're in the middle of planting things like that at the moment. You see we've got a lot more space along here as well. So that's our 4 rotational bays. Then we've got our ridge here, and the ridge, half of it is part of the strawberry fields, which we'll come to later. The rest of it is empty at the moment, but this is where I basically put my Conservatory Club. So we've got 1 aubergine planted so far, that is it. But we will have a couple more aubergines probably in this area. We'll have a couple of tomatoes, at least 1 red and 1 yellow that will probably die. We will have over here some cucumbers. I did well with cucumbers last year. Over here we'll have some ruby chard, and then right at the end we'll have spinach. These are all things that you can plant quite close because they sort of grow together really quickly and really high, and there's no problem. But that needs to be done by the end of the month basically, which leaves only the northern strip to go, and the northern strip is mostly taken up by these. These are our strawberries. We have 4 beds. We've got half the ridge there, the bay in the far that looks empty, that one, and this one down here. Its rotation is governed by what's called a fallow bed. The fallow bed sort of theory says that a strawberry after 4 years isn't much good. Now that's a complete lie. They can go on forever, but by the time they are 4 years old they've grown all over each other. They're a nightmare to harvest, and so the idea is that each year you dig up a bed like we have done there, dispose of the strawberries, and then in the autumn you use the runners from the other 3 beds to refill it, and you dig up the next bed. That way you always have a cycle where over about 5 years you've replenished the whole thing once. The year that it is fallow, you may grow other things in it, and this is what we have done this year. These are our butternut squash. We grew butternut squash once and we got 1, and ever since we have tried to find butternut squash we've always failed to grow them. We have 3 plants here. I am hoping that they do well. I'm really hoping they do well. Over here is our black currant, which is looking good. In a black currant you can see the little flowers are out. They haven't really been pollinated yet. Over here is one of our red currants. We have 2 red currants and 2 white currants. This red currant, you can see the flowers. There's a stig, and at the bottom those are the flowers, and at the top you can see the flowers have already been pollinated and the little berry is starting to show. When that berry starts to colour, we will need to use this frame that I've set up around here once again to put netting over, because the birds will go for them. Pesky the blackbird and his mate have been seen this year, so they'll be waiting for that. Here we've got 2 immature fruit trees. This one is a plum. Now last year it did nothing but leaf. This year it leafed and it flowered, but the flowers look like they're going to come to naught, to be honest. There's no swelling behind them. They're just going to drop off. That's fine. It shouldn't be producing us flowers for 5 years. And this is the 2nd or 3rd year. This is the sour cherry. Sour cherries, like flowering cherries, also have an abundance of blossom, but they're white instead of pink. And let me just say that this is already growing little tiny cherries. Can you see the swellings there behind it? It has given us, it gave us a harvest from the very first year, so we're expecting this to give us pretty much a proper harvest this year, which will be absolutely fabulous. The cherries were delightful, so I can't wait for that. Continuing along the north, we have our gooseberries. Now if I'm right, this is a normal gooseberry which produces green fruit. This is the dessert gooseberry, which produces purple fruit and tends to be a different colour green when it grows up. These things are testing our patience because they have been in the ground several years and haven't produced much at all. And we are at the stage where if they do not produce something good this year, we may have to dig them up and get rid of them because there is something wrong with them. Having said that, they both flowered well this year. I can't see the flowers now. I'm hoping that's just because they've been pollinated. Yes, they have. Look, if we look down here, can you see that? There's a pollinated flower with what looks like a swelling behind it. But hopefully that's your gooseberry. So let's hope, shall we? Here is the second red currant. This red currant started life over by the shed, underneath a huge white currant which was as tall as the shed and which collapsed the first year we were here after giving us the harvest. Oh, there's Pesky, there he is. And he's got worms in his mouth. Where's he going? There you go, he's got worms in his mouth. He's already taking a look at my currants. Yes. Anyway, there is a problem with the currants this year, and that is this. Now this is signs of a blister, what do they call them? I want to call it limpet, but it's not a limpet, it's an aphid. Blister aphids. Now the good news is that they can do all this damage to all the leaves. It doesn't matter to the quantity or yield of fruit that's produced. The bad news is it's a disease that you don't really want to last forever. Now what happens is the aphids don't stay on the tree, on the bush all year round. They will leave, they migrate at some point of the year. And what you need to do is when it goes cold in autumn, after the flowers have died off, almost immediately, before the aphids migrate back, you wash them with some kind of sort of fertilizer, some kind of wash thing. And what that does is that when the aphids arrive back from their migration and they're trying to lay their eggs, they die from it, and that's what we're going to try and do. It certainly hit that bush. I know it's hit this bush, so that's 2 out of the 4. I haven't seen it across there yet, and I haven't seen it down either of the other 2. So at the moment it's just the 2 red currants, and it's not a terrible outbreak. You know, you're getting the odd leaf, but it's not a terrible outbreak. But we do need to nip this in the bud, if you pardon the pun, and that's exactly what I intend to do. Which leaves our last bay here, which is our gourds bay. You can see it's mostly empty, but we do have a few things here. Pumpkins are already in. We have 2 pumpkins this year. We also have, if I can just go over here, a yellow courgette. But we have more to fill this. We will have some normal courgettes for a start, probably another pumpkin. We need a marrow as well. These are the things that need space, and they can be grown in the same place every year. So that's what we're doing with this area here. We do have a few more fruit bushes though. This is a very sad looking blueberry. Blueberries you plant in pots because they need what's known as ericaceous soil, which that is, so this thing had better perk itself up, to be honest. I've always wanted a blueberry. First year, so it's not going to do anything, but I do hope that next year it will bud and it will be fantastic. This is our pear tree. It's flowered well for the last 2 years. This year it's tried. It's had a little swelling behind the flower, but once again they've gone black and fallen off in most cases. So I'm not expecting anything from this year. Again, it's an immature tree. It doesn't need to do anything for 5 years, and I think this is only the 2nd, maybe the 3rd year. I can't remember. Onto the white currants. These 2 white currants, there's one here and the other one is in this corner here, were both planted after the great white currant collapsed. So we haven't had a proper harvest from either yet. We've just had growing harvests, but this looks good. This looks very good indeed. My little cranberry, and it's shooting up like anything. These are little leaves at the moment, but there'll all be a little flower bud on it. I don't like cranberries, but I love the cranberry bush. And finally, last but not least, this. This is a thornless bramble. And I'm trying to get this thornless bramble to grow up this wigwam so that when it comes out, it sort of comes out up here rather than down on the floor. It's a bit of a nightmare in one respect because it doesn't go where it doesn't like to go where I want to put it. On the other hand, the good thing about brambles is you can cut them as much as you like, and all it does is sort of stimulate extra growth. So I'm not going to kill it by cutting off its bits where I don't want it to go, but I would rather like to bend them round here. So this is a long-term wigwam, and that is pretty much our allotment for you. I don't know what else to say, really. Oh, maybe just explain this. I said that the Conservatory Club goes down here, which is stuff that should be grown inside, but I try to grow outside. One of those, which is actually like a window thing, like windows basically. I usually build a stone construction here, put that over the top. It lets the light and heat in, but it stops the wind and the cold, so that's why that's lying there. And that really is it, I think. I think I really have over-excelled myself this year. Sorry, this broadcast particularly. And I get a lot out of the allotment. I hope that you get as much out of it listening to me as possible. Ooh, that's the other thing. Notice that our strawberries, we are still on the last day of April, and a lot of our strawberries are already producing flowers. They're early this year, and they come in huge numbers. So we're already preparing ourselves for strawberry jam in midsummer.